Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 68. It's round 2 as England take on Wales in their bid to become the first team to win 3 Six Nations championships back-to-back. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hi guys, welcome to round 2 of the NatWest Six Nations. Dan was away last week, as you know, but he's back with us today, and I'm sure he's got plenty to talk about in terms of what he thought of last week's games and what he's expecting. So, Dan, what do you make of that?
Hello, mate. Yeah, I've always got plenty to say. First thing first, we'll get on to England stuff. Johnny Sexton has got bollocks the size of basketballs. That was one hell of a fucking drop goal, wasn't it? Jesus
It
Christ.
was. I in some ways, I kind of felt for France because I felt like Ireland simply hadn't done enough in that game. They were, by their standards, they weren't great. And I thought France had defended brilliantly. And the fact they'd kept it within 6 points and then scored the only try of the game, I just thought in some ways it felt like France deserved that win at the end there. But on the flip side, they're cheating bastards. Because that whole HIA thing, I mean, that is a joke. I mean, I know that lots of people are talking about it. I'm sure there are plenty of professionals out there saying, oh no, you can never be too careful. But let's be honest, when two guys go down clutching their knees and the replay shows clear injuries to their knees, they can't go off for an HIA in order to manipulate the rules on who gets to come back on the field. So it probably was the just result in the end, as much as obviously as England fans we would have liked to have seen Ireland lose that opener. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree with that. Yeah, it's ridiculous. That HI thing just takes the absolute piss. And I'm not buying into any, it's, the doctors not biased and all that crap. I'm not buying into it. It was cheating. But like you say, I do feel sorry for the players on the pitch who had nothing to do with that. They did nothing wrong because no one in that mind is thinking, yeah, they're going to slot a drop goal from here.
No. They and in fact, it wasn't the drop goal. I mean, yeah, it was a great drop goal. For me, it was that little crossfield kick 4 or 5 phases before. I mean, I don't know whether that was madness that worked out all right. I mean, can you imagine if that was simply caught by a Frenchman? The whole of Ireland, plus probably rugby fans up and down, all over the world, would be saying, "What the hell's Johnny Sexton doing?" Maybe that's an easy way to look at it, because obviously any mistakes, it's like kicking for touch rather than going for the post. You score the try, everyone thinks you're a hero, and kick for touch and get turned over, and everyone berates you for not knowing what the hell you're doing. But in that situation, what a crazy kind of decision to make. And there are some guys out there. I think they're called the 1014. They're not really a podcast. They're more of a YouTube channel, but same idea. But these guys are brilliant with their stats, and they did some analysis on that game. And interestingly, the only ground that Ireland made throughout those 40 odd phases of play was the kick, as in the kickoff for the 22 that gained them whatever it was, 20 yards, and which they retained. Brilliant. Then they ran backwards and forwards across the pitch, and then it was that crossfield kick, gained them another 20 yards, backwards and forwards across the pitch, and Johnny Sexton clearly just went, we're not going to get anywhere else. Our luck is going to run out. I've only got one shot here, and nailed it. So actually it was 3 kicks that made all the ground, that put the ball over the posts. They're all of that, those 40 phases, all of the play with ball in hand, they made almost no ground.
It's incredible. But Six Nations, like before last weekend's games kicked off, it was clear what was going to happen. England were going to destroy Italy, yeah, standard. Ireland were going to comfortably beat France, no chance. And Scotland were going to do a job on Wales. Oh my God, Wales stood up, man. It makes today interesting.
It does make today interesting. It does make today. I mean, some of the stuff that I've read is talking about, how great Wales were. I'm not convinced they were as good as everyone's making out against Scotland. I thought Scotland were so poor that actually Wales didn't take full advantage of the situation that they had in front of them.
I think Wales got a hell of a result there. I think Scotland were poor. I agree with that, but Wales you can only beat what's in front of you, and Wales did beat what's in front of them and beat them well.
Yeah, but I thought that Scotland were the weakest side out of all the teams that played last weekend.
Agreed. Which is a shame because they've got such talent. I really hope they play well against the French today. I like Scotland, and I want them to do. I do want them to do well, and I think it makes it. I think it makes for sort of Six Nations and sort of Northern Hemisphere rugby good as a whole when Scotland play well. But yeah, they were awful last weekend. Hopefully that'll change tomorrow when they take on the French. But you know.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, if we're looking to today and tomorrow's games, I think first up is obviously Ireland against Italy. I think it's probably a safe, comfortable win for. Well, not probably. It's going to be a safe, comfortable win for Ireland.
It's a bonus point win for Ireland.
But credit to Italy because they were a different side to what we've seen in past years when we played them last weekend. And despite the scoreline, I think that scoreline simply highlights that England really are the second best team in the world and pushing for that number one spot. They are a world class side. But I think credit where it's due. I think Italy looked really good, and I hope they can continue that form. Throughout the Six Nations, and that they can do it. Put in another performance today when they take on Ireland that just sort of says, look, a few years ago everyone was saying we shouldn't be in the Six Nations. We're just here to show everyone that actually we're where we should be, and we're getting better all the time. And I think they definitely did that against England last weekend. And they were unfortunate for them that England are so strong, particularly in that last 20 when they put games to bed. I'm getting a bit bored of the whole. Oh, if you look at the game, England only scored, points in the last 20 minutes, or like first 10, last 10, or whatever. It's like, well, that's still part of the game. The game's 80 minutes, and England plays that. That is part of the England game plan. And actually, they weren't. England did score right off the bat. The Ben Youngs injury obviously kind of culled the momentum a little bit, which is a shame. Obviously for the game, but also for Ben. But there were moments. The key thing is to come out of it with things to work on. They're not the number one team in the world yet, but that's where they want to be, and so there needs to be stuff that they can work on. And I think games like that, a comfortable win, a bonus point, you can't ask for more than that. A decent margin, but they also get to come away with things to work on. Because if they'd gone out there, if they'd absolutely trounced Italy, with a kind of pristine performance, you kind of come away going, yeah, but did we? Where do we improve for the Wales game?
Yeah,
and I think the fact that Italy have improved themselves and did put certain parts of the English game under pressure, it just means that there are things for England to work on this week in time for today's game against Wales. And I think a lot, as Eddie Jones said after that game, a lot of the problems that particularly where we're giving up tries, they came down to individual errors, and those are easily identifiable and easy to therefore work on.
Yeah, I think so. So despite all this, and there's a big build-up, and today's game has become more exciting. Let's make no mistake about it.
Oh, it's now being kind of tipped as the. I don't quite get how Ireland have been written off all of a sudden, but it's been tipped as the championship decider, because apparently if England win today, they go on to do the Grand Slam, and if Wales win today, they win the championship, which is a slightly bizarre thing to say, because it's kind of saying if England win, they beat everybody, but if Wales win, they probably won't win all their games, which I find a bit odd. But
it's but the whole Welsh thing, it's got a bit thrown out of control. I think I still don't see us losing today. I still don't really see a scenario where we lose, if I'm honest. That definitely has some bias attached. That definitely has some.
But I know what you mean, But is it just bias, or is it looking back at the last 2 years and the record that Eddie Jones and this England side have, and saying, well, look, you can argue that there's bias involved, but you'd also, likewise, if a Welshman's saying that Wales are going to do England, that's pure passion, because nothing on paper says that's what's going to happen.
I've been a bit pissed off because there's some stuff on paper that people have thrown, like, the Welsh front row will take down the English front row.
course they
The
won't.
only thing that Welsh front row will take down is a KFC bargain bucket. They have got no chance
That's quite good
taking
for you.
down the English front row. I did like that one.
I did.
And
Don't,
the other one.
quit while you're ahead. Quit while you're ahead.
No. The other one, which I'll say, which is annoying me. The Welsh people, they're like, Alan Wynne Jones. I'm like, Sir Marrow of Atoje.
Sir
Yeah,
Marrow.
we win that one. So
Yeah.
don't even throw Alan Wynne at me when we've got Marrow.
I mean, look, we gave Alan Wynne a pretty hard time during the Lions, but to be fair, for Wales, you know, he's a quality player. Offers an awful lot of experience, and I think they'd be struggling without him. You know, he's a key part of that team. But like you say, he's up against a Sir Marrow of Atoje. And you know, another great example of someone who is, you know, formidable, but also there are identifiable, not problems with his game, but identifiable areas for improvement. And that's just a great thing to see, when you could to be that good, but also be able to go, and also you can improve on that, and that. You know, and he will. You know, this is he's still young. He's still improving all the time, and so, you know, come next year, he's going to be, you know, he's already a formidable player, but he's going to be even better, which is just great to see.
Yeah.
Just before we move on then and actually talk about this England team that's going to take on Wales today, and while we were on the subject of kind of media stuff, this whole thing with Eddie supposedly saying that you know, the Welsh and in particular, is it
Patchell, Reece
Patchell, that's it, doesn't have the bottle to do what needs to be done against England. I mean, that's not the way I read what he said anyway. I think he was more just sort of putting the question out there to maybe, you know, just do what Eddie does. But I mean, there's been kind of mixed opinions about this one. You know, some people thinking it's hilarious, classic Eddie Jones, and, you know, who cares? Let's you know, this is part of the fun of the build up of these games. Other people saying it's actually quite out of order. Have you got an opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, because you and I spoke about this yesterday, actually. I think I've slightly changed my opinion from yesterday. I don't like it. I don't. So this kind of reminds me, you go back to sort of World Cup 2003, and everyone just slagging off England. The only thing I think this is doing is giving Wales motivation. However, having said this, I think that is exactly what Eddie's trying to do. I think Eddie, and I know this sounds, and this may be me massively, you know, 2 and 2 becoming 5. I think Eddie's doing it to challenge the England boys as much as anything.
Maybe.
I honestly believe there's a part of him sort of trying to motivate them.
I guess. Yeah, I guess if he's got that in his head as a you know, if he's genuinely thinking, well, look, if this fires up the Welsh and they bring, you know, a better game, then that's great practice for England. And if it goes the other way and actually just lumps too much pressure on top of them and they completely crumble, then that's good for England too. So maybe he's looked at it as a win-win. Because I think that is the thing, isn't it? You know, some of what he said makes sense. You know, this is, in theory, Wales' third. I mean, that's not really the point, is it? Because they've got injuries. So yes, he's the third choice fly half, but he's been selected on form. You know, he had a good game last weekend, but you know, the game last weekend, because of how Scotland played, it gave him a lot of time to do what he did. And there is a big question of, you know, I think Eddie Jones probably identifies this guy as a potential threat. So, you know, does this add extra pressure on what's already mounting quite a bit on this guy's shoulders? Probably, as much as they might not want to admit it, and much as he may not want to admit it. Of course it does. You know, Eddie's drawing attention to the fact. And you know, it's all well and good saying, well, I'm going to go out and prove you wrong now. But then do you get a little bit hot-headed? You know, makes me think of Danny Cipriani. He's the kind of guy that would react to something like that, maybe have the game of his life, but also, you know, maybe completely crumble. And I kind of think that's what Eddie's created here, is this situation where this guy, he's not going to be able to just completely ignore it and go out and just play a game without that not ringing in his ears throughout the match. But do you know what I mean? Like he's either going to go out and try and prove Eddie Jones wrong, and in doing that, he might have the game of his life, which would be that test that you talked about, or it may turn out to be too much for him, because this is a new experience for him, and this isn't playing a poor Scotland. This is playing one of the best teams in the world at Twickenham.
Yeah, it is. Reece Patchell's a good player. He is a good player. I think he played well last week. I've seen him for the Scarlets. He's a good player. You're right. It can go either way, but Eddie doesn't.
But I feel like it's gonna go.
It's almost not like Eddie just mouthing off.
I know what you mean, but it's almost like it's gonna go one of those two ways.
I agree.
He's either gonna have the game of his life, or he's going to crumble. It doesn't feel like there's room for a middle ground where he just does a reasonable job.
Now he'll have a perfectly average game, statistically sound, but without being great. He just won't really just to mug us off.
That will equally do us. That will suit us. But he's going to have a tough day. There are going to be guys up in his face, and he's certainly not going to be able to play as flat to the line as he did against Scotland, because the England defensive line speed is much more on point, and it's going to put him under a lot of pressure. And like you say, it'll be interesting to see how he deals with that pressure. And for his sake, we hope he deals with it well. For our sake, we hope not. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Anyway, onto the England side. Only 2 changes this week. One obviously forced with Ben Youngs. Mm-hmm. So Danny Care starts, and Wiggy comes in on the bench.
Big congrats to Danny Care. He's going to become the most captain England scrum half of all time today.
Yeah, well, didn't Ben Youngs become the most captain England scrum half of all time last weekend? So were they on the same number of caps? And obviously now, because of this, Danny Care takes over.
Pass.
I think it might be. I'm sure I remember hearing, No,
Danny Care takes over from Dawson today. I'm sure of it.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you're right. I did say that. Well, so maybe last weekend, both Danny Care and Ben Youngs equalled Dawson's record.
Possibly, yeah.
And now, because Danny Care and because Ben Youngs is injured, Danny Care takes, I don't know, something like that. But yeah, congratulations to him. Big task for Richard Wigglesworth. This is a guy who hasn't been involved. I mean, he played. I think he was involved with the England team that faced the Barbars. But other than that, he hasn't been involved with the England setup since 2015.
And this is something sort of looking at the wider issue. Why do England only have 2 scrum halves in the squad? And in many ways, that's why Wigglesworth, don't get me wrong, Wigglesworth's a quality player, but why he's a smart choice as well, because he has got that experience. That's the sort of stuff that probably wouldn't faze him as much as maybe a young lad like a Jack Wanda.
Well, and you look at the way that England are playing, and you look at the tries they scored last weekend and some of those moves. There's a lot to learn. It's like American football. There's like a playbook that someone's got to come in and learn, and it's scrum half in particular. And so, I guess you exactly what you're saying. This is a very experienced scrum half who has done this, week in, week out for many years, and so perhaps he has that better chance. And this is nothing, not to take away from the quality player that he is, and he is a great player. But maybe he's someone who can just sort of soak up the information and learn it quicker than an alternative.
Yeah, I think so. It wouldn't surprise me. I don't know if Eddie's game plan will be to necessarily do the guaranteed swap on 55 to 60 minutes.
If Danny's going well, you think actually
he'll probably keep. If the game's tight, I suspect Danny stays on.
Yeah, and then the other change, of course, is Ben Teo out for JJ. Ben Teo and JJ have done a swap. Teo's on the bench, which I don't mind actually.
To me, I think that's a defensive call. I think there's a few aspects to it. Teo, I thought, did quite well. I think he adds a dynamic that perhaps we haven't had before, and he does draw in those defenders, open up some gaps. But he is fresh back. Is it maybe a bit too much of an arse from a fitness perspective? Not from purely because he hasn't had that much rugby. But secondly, England defend very narrowly. And actually, Italy's tries, fair enough, there were a couple of lovely passes that got them out wide. But JJ defensively is brilliant. I'm not saying Teo's not, but JJ's also that bit quicker. So you can afford to defend a bit more narrow when you've got someone with the pace to get out wide just that, that half second quicker. And I think that's something Wales will look at. We can attack them wide. But if you've got JJ, who is an absolutely unbelievable defensive 13, who's also got that bit of pace, you don't need to defend as wide as perhaps if you've got a Teo, even a Henry Slade, for example, who both are not no slouches, but JJ can make that extra half yard. So
Yeah, and
I think that's a big call.
Yeah, and I guess as well, if you think, come 20 minutes to go or whatever, if it feels like, what England have lacked is a bit of punch up the middle, then you have that option on the bench.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's another one because they're so different. It's another one where you think not a guaranteed swap.
No.
And the way that Ford and Farrell played together last weekend, you wouldn't want to take either of them, really. I mean, assuming they have a similar game this week, you wouldn't want to take either of them off because they work so well together. You don't want to kind of break up that partnership. So it kind of leaves you thinking that Tio, for a game like today, short of any kind of issues, it's really a case of you're either on at 13 or you're not on at all. So it'll be interesting again to see whether or not today is a kind of a clean sweep of bringing the finishers on.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The Ford Farrell thing worked well last week. It does work well together. I'm a little sceptical about they're telepathic. They read each other's minds. They've been friends in school.
You don't think
they have been? But I'm sure they still, I don't know, play with their Lego together or whatever. But they're still. Yes, they work well together. Yes, it helps that they've played through the age groups, but. It's a 10-12 combination. There's been many examples of them over the year. You look at a Johnny, a Will Greenwood, where it works well. Let's not overplay what it is. It's two brilliant players playing well, and they both deserve the credit on individual performances rather than saying, "Oh, look, they've known each other all their life. That's the only reason it's going well." I think they both deserve because every game is so different, but. They adapt to the games individually and as a pairing, as any good team does.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one more man that I want to talk about before we leave everyone with some anthems. Sam Simmonds.
Legend.
I mean, whether or not he gets an opportunity to do that again, forget the 2 tries. If you look at statistically, if you look at his both his attack and defensive work. It was unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, I think he put in the most tackles. I think he also made the most. Yeah. I think he came up. He made 2 yards less than Anthony Watson,
who also had a great game.
But Anthony Watson's a winger. This guy's a number 8.
Yeah. Sam Simmonds had an absolute corker of a game.
Is he England's 6, 7, or is he an 8? We know
he's not 8. He's not 8 when Billy's back because Billy is still 8. But he should be in there. He could be a 7
or
a 6. I think 7. I think 7
or a 1 or 2. No, what I was going to say was, or is he a finisher?
No, I want to see him play. I think.
It wasn't that long ago we were talking about how the back row is there's question marks, we're not really sure. And now it's starting to feel like we're struggling to find places for people. Because Laws is looking good in the back. Rob Shaw, we know he is the experience and the quality that guy is, he's quite key. You've then got Underhill, who defensively is phenomenal. We're now seeing Sam Simmonds, who looks like, he has to be involved somehow. We know about Billy. We've got Nathan Hughes, who, is there room for him if you've got a Sam? It's a good problem to have, but we're starting to get to a point where actually that strength in depth that we thought we were lacking in the back row is there, and that's not to mention any of the kind of the other youngsters that we were previously banging on about, in the Curry twins and what have you. So it seems that back row is starting to take shape now.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Firstly, if everyone was completely fit, my ideal back row today would be Billy at 8, Rob Shaw at 6, Simmonds at 7.
Mm-hmm.
But
and then who would be the cover?
I think
given that you've now got Simmonds who can cover 8, so you don't need to have Nathan Hughes.
Yeah, I think I'd have Underhill.
So then Underhill would come in, and Nathan Hughes unfortunately loses out.
Yeah, I think so. But we've also
what do you do with Laws then?
He's covered for second row.
But then what do you do with Cruz?
He can go and bring on the drinks.
Okay, yeah. Water boy. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how this is one of our awesome foursome that you're sending to make the teas.
Yeah. He's a good player, but at the moment I've got Laws ahead of Cruz at the moment. I'm sorry to say, but it's the other thing. What we have got to bear in mind yeah, Sam Simmons was brilliant, but it's one game.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
I think everyone
absolutely.
has a habit of like one game and being like, this guy is world class.
Oh no,
If he
absolutely.
repeats it today, amazing.
That's the thing, isn't it? We're looking to see whether or not he can, prove that is actually the kind of guy kind of player that he is. What we saw last weekend, and can he do it again today? And that's why I'm saying it's not about scoring 2 tries, because he's unlikely to do that. Obviously, it'd be amazing if he could. But it's about looking at the statistics at half-time and at full-time and saying, is he putting in the same kind of performance sort of behind the scenes? Because if he is, and that's obviously what the coaches are looking at, that'll be very interesting to see if this is a guy who's kind of been a little bit hidden, who's really coming out into the open now, and it's not a bad time to be pushing for a sort of top spot in the back row for England, because that's the one area where there seemed to be a few spaces available.
Yes, yeah.
Go on.
No, I was going to say it's an interesting dynamic for going on in the back row, and it's going to be good to see. I really hope Simmons follows up with this, because he has got a hell of an opportunity now to make a back row spot his coming into World Cup year.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, look, before we leave everyone, it's that time. Predictions.
England by 8.
England by 8. Do you know what? I don't know why, but I'm saying England by 20.
Ooh, big shout. Big shout, because I'm 1-0 up, aren't I?
What did you say last week? No,
you said Italy by 20. Actually, in fairness, you may have said England by 20. I said England by 25.
You're right.
I think it was England by 31.
Yes, you're 1-0 up. So it's probably a big shout to be going 20 in this game. But I believe that Wales has been massively overhyped by their performance against a very weak Scottish side. And as you said, you're only as good as the opposition that you're facing. But I think Wales might have bitten off more than they can chew today. We shall see. We're going to leave you now, and when you hear from us again, it'll be half-time. So possibly a very different, slightly more sombre sound to our voices. Hopefully not. Hopefully we'll be pretty pumped. So enjoy the first half, guys. Enjoy the anthems now, and we will catch you in about 40 minutes. Hey guys, half time. What a first half, Dan. What did you think?
Yeah, good mate, good. Happy with where we are. My only slight concern is Faz is not having his sort of 100% kicking record.
No,
that we like to see.
He's missed one.
Yeah, so
yeah, a bit annoying, obviously. But to be honest, I'll take that, because he's otherwise playing like some sort of demon.
He's just world class, isn't he?
When England get going in attack, they just look like it's a different class.
They're dangerous. They're so dangerous. That kick through for the first try was absolute genius.
Yeah. I am happy. I'd like to see a little bit more daylight between the scores. I know that seems silly, because based on our predictions, we're kind of exactly where we need to be to hit my prediction. But I don't know. It's always the way, isn't it? In the early stages, it's just a bit uncomfortable. It's a bit uncomfortable until you see that daylight. And in England, typically, we'll see what happens today, obviously, but typically it's that last 20 when they kind of put the icing on the cake. So if they can go out and do in the second half what they've done in this first half, I think we'll see that daylight start to appear. It's unusually good to see England kind of the way they've started. They're often quite slow out of the blocks.
Yeah, I think England looked dangerous. There's a few things I'll say, like Wales. Firstly, I actually think they were unlucky. I thought that was a try.
See, I didn't.
I
didn't.
Yeah, I know. I'm with Dicko actually, and Dicko didn't either. He said it wasn't, and he called it as they called it on the pitch. To me, I thought it was, but
in the first slow-mo they did, I saw daylight between his hand and the ball before the ball touched the ground. So he had his hand on the ball, he was bringing it down, daylight appeared, the ball touched the ground, his hand touched the ball again. So
fair enough. I didn't see that
so
bit, but
that's effectively a knock-on.
I'm not going to complain about that. The other one, Patchell missed a kick, but I thought they were absolutely stupid not to take those 3 points when they
twice now they've done that.
Yeah.
Twice now they've tried to go for the corner, and it's like it's disrespectful in some ways.
It's just stupid.
And when you are a team, it's the sort of thing that Ireland did against Italy because they knew they were going to win and they wanted to make sure they maximise points. It's not the sort of thing that Wales should do when they're coming in as the underdog at Twickenham.
Against England at Twickers, yeah.
You take your points. And if they had done, okay, to be fair, on that occasion, the first one, they actually got a penalty shortly afterwards and they got their 3. But, it would be 9 or it would be 6 or whatever it would be, 6 points. So less damage, they'd have closed the gap to less than a try. As it stands, it's 12-3. It's just crazy. And, if it comes down to a close game at the end, I personally don't think it will. They're going to kick themselves. No pun intended.
Yeah, nice. Well done. You did well there.
Thanks. I think England are unfortunate, actually, for the score not to be more than what it is. I've got some stats in front of me here that actually just come through on a tweet. And, metres run with the ball. England, 215. Wales, 142. That's quite impressive in just a half of a game of rugby. Possession, 57% England, 43% Wales. Territory, 61% England, 39% Wales. Clean breaks, England 4, Wales none. Defenders beaten is similar. Offload similar. So, rucks 1, England 64, Wales 46. It just, it feels like England have got the upper hand. I mean, I guess that the score shows that they have. So maybe I'm arguing a moot point because actually, it is 12 points to 3 to England, and that's a reasonable lead after half a game of rugby. 2 tries, both for Johnny May. Never scored in a Six Nations game before, so well done to him.
Is that so? Yeah. I never known. Well done, Johnny May. So the thing is, when I see the Wales back line, they don't scare me. Like when they kick for the corner and they didn't take the points, I thought the England defence would hold out every time, and they did.
Yeah. I think
whereas England, to me, looked like, oh, hello, there's a bit, these guys can be dangerous.
Yeah, I think one of the big problems England have right now is penalty count. It's not crazy. We talk about keep it under 10, keep it in single figures. It's 5 penalties. England have given up 5 penalties in the first half. So in theory, that's if they can do the same or less in the second half, that's what we're looking for. Wales have only given away one penalty in the first half,
and that's that could be telling. England. I hope England, if they do get penalties, I hope England do take the points. I hope England don't just become morons like Wales have been. I hope they take the points, but
I think they will. I think they will, unless the gap, unless they score like 3 or 4 tries on the bounce in the second half, the first 10 minutes or something. I think they'll take the points because I think that's they're kind of trained to treat it like a World Cup final, treat every game like a World Cup final, and that's take your points. And I think when you've got a lead, it's even simpler. There comes a point, obviously, when you're losing and the gap is big enough that you can't. You need to.
Sure.
But neither side is there yet. I think Wales are going to kick themselves for not having taken points because I think if England come out, and particularly if England come out and score early in the second half, that gap then becomes big enough that Wales have to start thinking we don't really have a choice now, and that's not a great position to be in.
No, it's not a great position. I think the next, this is such a cliche and I hate it, but next score could be key. If England run over a try sort of fairly early in the second half, Wales could be in trouble. If Wales even just get 3 points or something, then it definitely is game on. There's just something about this Welsh team that's not worrying me at the moment. But the problem is Wales against England. Wales want this badly. Where that if whatever else happens in the Six Nations, if they beat England, they'll consider they've had a good Six Nations with what they did last week and beating England. So we do need to be careful. We do need to make sure that we're not, resting on our laurels and things. But I think England might even run away. You might even be right. You said 20 points.
Yeah. I wanted to say 30. Jesus. And I couldn't bring myself to do it. But yeah, 20 points I think 20 points is more than doable, because if the same scores occur in the second half, and typically you see more points scored in the second half, but if we scored the same, it would be 24-6. So it's there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
What did I say? I can't remember what I said. 39-9, I think I said, didn't I?
I think you said that when we were doing our group with you, me, and Coops. But I mean, we'll stick by those sort of. I said 8 points, you said 20. We'll stick by whoever's closest to that.
Cool. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it'll be very interesting to see whether the England finishes, that last 20. And there's no reason why they shouldn't, just because Wales is a stronger side than Italy. Whether they come out and do what they do and double up the score, as they often have done in the past, because it's something England have done time and time again throughout the last 2 years.
Who are our impact finishers, though? Who's going to come on and really make that difference?
Well, I mean, perhaps it's slightly different to in the past. But is it more about the quick ball? Is it more about the tiring forwards and bringing on? And it's the forward replacements that come in and create the quick ball for the guys that are out there right now to just do more with the ball that they're getting. I mean, we've already seen the impact of quick ball when it's over and over and over again. England look incredibly dangerous. It's kind of like what we normally see from them in the last 20. We were seeing from them in the sort of 20 to 30 minute mark.
Yeah, completely, mate. I'm feeling positive about this. I'm feeling good about it. And then, like you say, that quick ball will make a difference. The Welsh midfield, good players, but they're not scaring me. Whereas the English midfield, give them a bit of space, and I think we could start opening them up. And then we've got just raw gas with May and Watson out wide.
JJ.
So what I wouldn't mind seeing is maybe Mike Brown come off, Noel come on, and maybe put Watson at fullback with Noel on the wing. I think we're going to start.
I think that'll happen. I don't know if it'll happen. I don't think it's going to happen too soon, because I think so far Mike Brown, he did have that one shocker sort of late in the second half, but he's been pretty tidy under the high ball. And I think that's it's one of the things that Eddie particularly likes about him. And clearly today is a big kicking game day. He's going to be and this is not to say that Anthony Watson can't handle the high ball, because we know he can do it too. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see which way he goes with that. But the changes will happen. Jack Noel will come on, I'm sure. Whether we see Ben Teo, I don't know. And I don't think we'll necessarily see Wigglesworth.
Yeah, they might keep Danny Care. Wigglesworth might come on last 5-10, depending where the score goes. I think we'll see Teo, and he could cause trouble. Because when you're knackered and you've got that unit running at you, you're just like, oh, for God's sake, are you kidding me? So he could come on and start causing a bit of trouble. And then sort of the back three, I forgot, because we've got Jack Noel to come on, and he will make himself busy. He will get all over the place. He will be a pain in the arse for the Welsh, and I can't wait.
Yes, right. Well, let's get back to it. I think it's going to kick off again in the next few minutes, and hopefully when we come back in 43 minutes or so, well, probably a little bit longer. We'll probably see what they have to say after the game. But when we come back, hopefully we're still smiling, and hopefully England are one game closer to becoming the first team ever to win 3 Six Nations championships on the bounce,
including 2 Grand Slams.
Which so yeah, we'll leave you guys with a little bit of swing low to get you into the second half. Take care.
Catch you back.
Wow. second half is over. A result, first and foremost. England win 12-6. Not the second half we were hoping for, Dan.
No, it wasn't really, was it? Do you know what? I'm going to give Wales a lot of credit there. Their penalty count was so low. They really held to it, because there were a couple of points where we were sort of attacking them. Not as many as I'd like to have seen, but they didn't give the penalties away. The one thing that I think might be the difference between this team and perhaps 2003 team, in those positions, I reckon if we had a Johnny, he'd have slopped over a drop goal. Just to keep the scoreboard ticking, just to add that, just to put the game slightly more and more out of reach. We didn't go for that, but that's not the end of the world. Wales will be kicking themselves for not taking their chances.
Yeah, they will be, for sure. I mean, I'm sure that try will be debated for many months. I still believe, I watched it again afterwards, I still believe that whilst his hand may have touched the ball while the ball was on the ground, the rules are clear. It needs downward pressure, and I don't believe there was any downward pressure. And therefore, I agree with the TMO. There wasn't a clear grounding. I think a lot of the Welsh fans, naturally, and I'm sure if roles were reversed, I'd feel very differently. But the reality is that simply having your fingers on the ball when it touches the ground, that's not a try. You need to actually press the ball down with downward pressure, and I don't believe that he did.
Yeah, I mean, I'm mixed. At the time, I must admit, I thought it was a try. But with this, I think the game's a game. If that's a try, it's not like it's a last minute thing. I think it's a different game. I think people play differently.
Agreed.
I always felt we were going to win that. There was no point where when
they got even when Sam Underhill made that tackle.
That was a hell of a tackle, wasn't it?
That tackle will feature. I have no doubt in films and clips, and they'll go back to that time and time again, because I don't think I've ever seen a tackle quite like that.
When you dive for the line and you're sliding in, you don't expect to be stopped.
The guy was celebrating already. I mean, I saw him go down, and I thought, you've gone down so early, and you're just going to slide this in, you bastard. And then from out of nowhere, Sam Underhill was just suddenly there and had flipped him on his back. It was unbelievable.
That was genius. Do we know why Simmons was taken off? I missed that.
Specifics, no, but it was an injury replacement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he didn't replace him because he didn't think he was doing a good enough job. Although, whilst I'll need to see the stats to know exactly how Sam performed, I did think, and it's kind of, for me, it shows why he's not England's number 8. He seems to lack control at the back of the scrum.
I'll agree with that. I said that to Dicko, actually. I'm watching it there, and I said, yeah, he's at the back of the scrum. He's not as controlled as you'd want from the 8. I don't think that's a major deal. I think that's something that can be sort of brought up to speed fairly quickly.
Well, and I think as well, it's kind of irrelevant because I don't think he is the future of number 8 for England. So,
agreed.
At the moment he's doing a job, and they are filling in because there are injuries in certain areas. But he's certainly a quality player. But Sam Underhill, last week it was Sam Simmons. This week, Sam Underhill saying, hold on, don't forget about me. And fair enough. That phenomenal tackle. I'll probably talk about that all day, but we won't. The right result?
I think so.
I agree. I think just England was so dominant in that first half. And actually, to be fair, the scoreline doesn't show it, but they were dominant in that second half as well until maybe the last 10, 12 minutes when Wales seemed to just... It was the only time in the game where I felt remotely kind of concerned was that last 12 minutes. And not just because it was at the end, but I don't know, it just felt like there was something. Wales had a bit of a spark. And it felt like... I
think that always happens when you're chasing and you get a sniff.
Maybe. But I think, Shane Williams, despite some, in my opinion, awful commentary... he kept saying things like, "Well, I know Wales knocked it on, but they've did really well before they did that." And I know that I know that Wales are going backwards, but they've got the ball in their hands and things like this, and it reminds me a little bit of who's our ex-hooker who loves to
Brian Moore.
Brian Moore with his biased commentary.
Yeah, there's always going to be a bit of bias, and Shane Williams is such a legend, but I'll let that go.
Will you let it go? I mean, I let him know on Twitter a few times. He hasn't responded.
Good.
For the record. But it's out there, Shane. If you want to come back to me, but yeah, I thought England were very dominant for large parts of that game, and he made a good point when he said that there was quite a big section, maybe 20 plus minutes in the second half, where England were massively dominant in terms of possession, but no points. And he said sometimes that can mess with your head, because everything on the stats sheet suggests that you should be coming away with points, and if you don't, it can make life very difficult for you. And so when a counter-attack starts to go well, you're on the back foot, and also you've got this kind of psychological. I don't know if I believe any of that. I don't know if I buy into it, but I get his reasoning. And England need to be coming away with points from strong possession periods.
Yeah, agree. So what do you reckon? Do you reckon England's attack was just a bit lacking? Do you reckon Wales' defence was very strong?
I actually think England got kind of turned a bit inside. I think Richard Wigglesworth came on and did a job, but it wasn't the same job.
I think he slowed it down.
His speed of ball and accuracy was off, definitely. You saw a lot of passes from him that just had the players having to take a half step back, turn to take the ball. Not the clean, crisp ball that we're used to seeing from Ben Youngs and Danny Care. And I think when you combine those two, you get it for 80 minutes. By bringing Richard Wigglesworth on for that last 20, I just felt like England lost a bit of momentum off the back of that, unfortunately. Part of me wants to say, look, the guy's not been part of the camp. He's come in, he's learnt all of this in a couple of days, so what can you expect? And on that basis, he's done a pretty good job. But then the other part of me is saying, well, why bring him on? He's going to be involved for the rest of the Six Nations. If he's not needed, Danny Care wasn't suddenly, in dire straits. I feel like maybe the smart move would have been to keep Danny Care on for the full 80 today, give Richard Wigglesworth, because there's a 2-week break now, another 2 weeks to really kind of gel with the rest of the camp. And I'm sure once that happens, and I'm sure in 2 weeks' time when he comes back, he'll be a very different player for England. But that was a bit frustrating. And then obviously when Anthony Watson went off, I felt that was a big loss. Not because I don't think that Jack Nowell is a suitable replacement, but I think the way the game is set up and the way that the game plan was kind of lined up, it needed Anthony Watson there for the 60, and Jack Nowell to come on and be the impact player, and it was just a bit too soon for me. Yeah,
I thought Jack Nowell did well. Watson came off because he was injured, though, didn't he?
No, that's what I mean. Not. I'm not saying tactically it was a mistake. I'm saying it was a shame that this happened, and it caused a situation where, once again, a bit like last week, the game plan couldn't be fully realised.
Yeah, it was. Look, I think the thing we need to take from it, we beat the Welsh. We're 2 from 2. We've gone. I think we're actually probably a point or two now. I think we're probably second. I think we're a point or two behind the Irish, with regards to points difference, sort of top of the table. But that's fairly irrelevant.
We shouldn't be. No. It was before we played. It was 30. We were plus 31. They were plus 36 or 39. So
I think it would have been 39.
So maybe there's a couple of
7. I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's two. Okay. So 2 points in it. That's nothing in the grand scheme of things.
Oh yeah.
I mean, to be honest, no one wants to lose to win the championship. So I kind of almost prefer that it's a case of having to win the game, to make it.
Yeah, but it was what the Welsh I thought did really well today was their penalty count was so low. Do you have the stats as to what it was?
I don't. I've been looking to see if I can find it, because it would be really useful to know exactly what the stats were in that second half. But we know that it was 1 penalty in the first half.
Jesus Christ, that's unbelievable. That's really good.
And I can't remember a huge number in the second half. I mean, there was a few perhaps when they were kind of deep in attack, and so we maybe cleared our lines, but certainly no. There were obviously no kickable penalties because
we had no chance to do that, which was why I was saying I'd like to have seen perhaps a Ford or a Farrell take that drop goal, because that extra 3 points, if you put it at, be it 15-3, 15-6, makes a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely, and it changes the mindset of the Welsh. You know, when they're in range, they know exactly what they have to do, especially after they got that penalty. You know, and they were 6 points behind, because a try could do the job then. A little bit like Ireland against France.
What happened to Halfpenny? I missed that because I've been rushing about between places. Why was Halfpenny not playing? Was he injured last minute?
Yeah, he has a foot infection.
Oh, okay.
Athlete's foot, maybe? I don't know. What the hell's a foot infection? Injury? If they said he had a foot injury, I'd be like, okay, yeah, and I'm all over that. Can't run around with a foot injury, but foot infection.
Who knows, mate? Who knows? But
dipping the wick.
Probably lucky. Yeah, Wales will be kicking themselves for what they missed out there. But I actually think that it does change the dynamic of the game. I think England kind of had that lead. There just wasn't quite the urgency to improve on that lead or to sort of really take the game completely out of the Welsh way. I think England were fairly happy to hold on to it because it wasn't. It just didn't seem hugely threatening. Yes, Wales got close a couple of times. But they weren't all over us. So England did seem to lose a bit of urgency, which I'd like to have seen more of. I don't know. I don't really know how I feel, mate. There's a part of me that's like a bit flat about it, but there's also a part of me that's like, do you know what? Fine.
I know exactly what you mean. At the end of the day, a win's a win. We're after a championship first. We're after a Grand Slam second, and we're still on target to do both. There's been a lot of chat on Twitter because obviously Ireland had Italy today and smashed them. There's been a lot of chat on Twitter about how Ireland are the clear favourites now. But
oh god, yeah,
you know, at the end of the day,
changes by the hour.
Yeah, at the end of the day, both England and Ireland have had one game that they've won comfortably and taken a bonus point from, and one game that's been pretty close and they've eked out a win from it. The big test, obviously, is going to be, what happens in the Ireland against Wales game and in the England against France game, to kind of set things up for that final showdown and the final weekend. I'm making assumptions about Scotland, but I just think we'll see what happens tomorrow. But that performance, again, obviously last weekend, would suggest that things are not quite as rosy as they might like to have thought.
I still think Scotland are dangerous at Murrayfield. I think they'll be dangerous for us at Murrayfield. I think Ireland now have, because they've got Wales at home, they've got Scotland at home. I think
they're at home until they play us in the final weekend of the season.
So they've got Wales and Scotland at home, which I fancy them both for. Mm-hmm. Whereas we've got France away and Scotland away, right?
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's interesting. Don't get me wrong, I fancy us for both of those, but it makes it tough.
I'm not sure Eddie will mind. He'll be thinking, well, in the World Cup, every single game is away, so You can't.
It's very profound.
Yeah, exactly. You can't use that excuse. And if it makes it a tougher challenge, great. And actually, it's pretty good to then, it's assuming that England can get the W's, which is what they're so good at. Doing what is necessary to get the win. And you can win a World Cup by 6 points. You still walk away with the World Cup. So it's not necessary to dick everyone that you play. As much as we would have liked to have seen that today, and as much as that first half suggested that it was possible, it didn't happen. I don't know why. I don't know whether England let Wales off the hook or whether Wales just stepped it up in the second half. I need to watch it again. I need to see some of the stats. But yeah, they didn't obviously bring the same sort of aggression and whatever the words are, I can't even think of them now. But in that second half that they had in the first half, and unfortunately that meant that it wasn't quite as big a score as perhaps I had hoped.
So what are you more annoyed about? Like we were nilled in the second half, it wasn't quite as good as it was, or the fact that I'm now winning 2-0 on predictions?
Are you winning 2-0 on predictions?
Yeah, well, I predicted the Italy game closer, and I predicted England win by 8, whereas England won by 6.
Oh, no, mate,
You predicted they
I'm happy
you
for you.
predicted they win by 20.
No, I'm really happy for you because you got to win
Okay.
something.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Right, so
Thanks.
you have these, and you enjoy them. More importantly, I think
I do
you
enjoy it.
deserve it.
I do
You
deserve it. I
deserve it.
do deserve it a lot. Bit.
Um, couple of weeks ago. Clearly, lots to work on in training off the back of that game. As I say, I don't know what specifically. I need to watch it again. I need to better understand whether.
Mate, completely agree. I need to sort of sit down, look at it again, sort of have a thing, and then actually, so next week, yeah. So when we do maybe sort of Tuesday, I think we'll probably do ours Tuesday or something, and we look at it. I think we'll probably be having different
Yeah,
views of
we'll have a better idea of what went wrong in the second half, if in fact something went wrong, or did Wales simply, bring a different side to that second half. I don't know. So we'll come back and we'll kind of relook at this then. But for now, the most important thing is England got the win. They're still on track to do what they need to do. They're still on track for their crazy record. Their crazy unbeaten streak, bar obviously that one last year. And that's ultimately that's the most important thing. So we shall see how things progress. But yeah, Scotland is the next one. It's in 2 weeks' time. And England definitely with a little bit of work to do, but I'm confident about that one.
Yeah, I think so. I like to. I'll be really interested to see how the Scots get on tomorrow. Yeah, mate, we won. We beat the Welsh. I'm happy.
Excellent. Well, guys, look, thank you for joining us. Hopefully you enjoy these episodes where we do our kind of pre, during and post-game analysis. Whether you agree with what we have to say or not, that's obviously incredibly biased, but that's what we're about. With the England Rugby Pod, we believe England are going to win the World Cup, and we will die fighting the England cause. So hopefully you enjoyed doing the same thing. We appreciate you listening. You can check out all of our past episodes and get involved on the website, www.englandrugbypod.com. Get in touch with us on Twitter. We're banging out loads of tweets these days, particularly during the games. Get in touch, have your say. That's at England Rugby Pod, and we're on Facebook too. And please spread the word. Let your friends, family know about us. Get them listening. Show them how if they don't know how. And if you get the opportunity, we'd love it if you could pop over to iTunes, drop us a rating and a review, and tell us what you think. Hopefully all positive, lots of 5 stars. But yeah, from us, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll catch you next week.
Toodles.